Our story is titled Beauty Rest from Season 4, Episode 5, originally airing on July 11th, 1992. Our story starts off with Helen, an aging model filming a perfume commercial. The director Emilio yells cut before showering her with praise. Helen is happy but doubtful she did that good of a job. Emilio continues to blow smoke up her chimney, saying that he's worked in the business for over 20 years, and this is the first screen test he's ever actually loved. But since it's only a screen test, Helen feels compelled to still ask if she got the job. Emilio says that as far as he's concerned, it's a done deal, only for her to have a meeting with her agent Archie, who reveals that isn't the case. She's confused as to why Emilio seems so happy, only for her not to get the part. Archie says they decided to go another way. She says that after 10 years in the business, she feels entitled to her big break, before asking who beat her out in getting the role. Archie looks up in horror, knowing the answer isn't going to make Helen happy. He tries to dance around the answer, asking if it's really that important who got it. Helen is steadfast and resolute, saying that she needs to know. He again tries to sidestep an answer, telling her to look to the future instead of being bummed about the past. He laughs, trying to numb the sting of what he's about to say. He reveals that Helen's roommate Joyce beat her out of the role. The expression on Helen's face tells us this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Archie tries to smooth things over, saying that Joyce's acting impressed the director. Helen makes a backhanded joke about Joyce sleeping with the director to get the part. Archie says that the reason Helen keeps getting passed over for roles is because she has a rotten attitude. She can never accept that someone outperformed her, and it's no secret that she drags people's names through the mud every time someone is cast over her. He says being pleasant to work with is part of the job. She screams that she isn't willing to sleep with anyone for a part. Archie says she's hopeless, before we cut to her opening her front door, mumbling under her breath about the conversation with her agent. She stumbles over something in the entryway and tumbles to the floor. Joyce comes in asking if she's okay and telling her that she got some great news today. Helen insults her and storms off. Joyce asks what's wrong. Helen raids the freezer and is in the middle of destroying a tub of ice cream as she lays into Joyce, asking why it seems every time she's about to get a role, someone else gets it. And in this most recent case, it's Joyce that supposedly stole the role. She makes the joke yet again that it must be because she spreads her legs. Joyce defends herself, saying that she's never had to do that, while reminding Helen that the ice cream she's currently destroying is hers. Helen spits the ice cream back into the container out of spite, and Joyce is disgusted. Helen says she wants her out of the apartment, and Joyce says matter-of-factly the apartment is hers too. Helen looks at her in anger before telling her to go to hell, then proceeds to house leftover pizza. Joyce, still trying to be understanding and a good friend, tries to talk Helen out of her current rage-induced kitchen crawl. She says that she has always tried to be a good friend to her, and Helen barks back that they aren't friends. She goes on a tirade about how friends don't steal each other's jobs, saying that she took the perfume ad from her. Joyce smiles and is excited to hear she got the part. Helen looks stunned as she realizes that Joyce was happy about something else and had no idea that she had even gotten the role that Helen wanted. She asks why she's so damn happy then. Joyce reveals that a guy she's been dating has gotten her into a beauty pageant. Helen recoils in despair, whispering that she hates her and that she's going to be sick. Joyce, still trying to smooth things over, asks if she's going to be okay. Helen rushes past her, screaming for her to stop talking to her. Helen storms into the bathroom and sees pills in the medicine cabinet. A deceptive look crawls across her face. Later, she goes into Joyce's bedroom and shakily offers her a cup of tea, saying that it's a peace offering. Joyce is understandably skeptical, but drinks the tea as Helen vents her frustration. Joyce takes big gulps of the tampered tea and hugs Helen as a grin crawls across her face. Helen asks if Joyce gets any money from the contest. Joyce stumbles her words but says the winner will get a spokesperson position at a new beauty company. But as the laced tea begins to kick in, she stutters over her words and gets lost mid-sentence. She laughs, saying she feels tired all of a sudden but continues to drink. The room begins to spin and Helen begins to laugh harder. Joyce looks down at her teacup, noticing that things are beginning to feel off. She falls back into the bed, dazed and unable to move. Helen steals the beauty contest invitation from her bag and says by the time she wakes up, the tables will be turned and she'll be the one with the spokesperson job, laughing as she exits the room. Helen looks back and notices that Joyce is laying motionless with her eyes open, causing her to pause mid-sentence. She checks Joyce's pulse and realizes the drug tea didn't cause her to fall asleep, it killed her. In a panic, she tries to listen for a heartbeat, but hears nothing. She yells that she's not going to jail over her as she tries and fails to give her CPR. In a rush, Helen goes over to their typewriter and types up a fake sewer slide note. She leaves the note and cleans up the crime scene, getting ready to go to the beauty contest in Joyce's place. Later, at the pageant, Helen meets George, giving him the letter, saying that she's taking Joyce's place in the contest. As an added bonus to Helen's plan, the contest was rigged from the beginning. Whoever had that letter would be the winner. George looks at the note and congratulates her in advance and tells her to make it look good so nobody is suspicious of the outcome. George is happy, saying that since they already know the winner, it will make things easier. The two walk away as another contestant overhears their conversation. Helen settles into her dressing room. She's confronted by the other contestant that overheard her and George's conversation. She begins laying into Helen the same way she did to Joyce, accusing her of sleeping her way to the top, just as their argument is about to get out of hand. George walks in and interrupts. George goes over a few details about her upcoming spot. Helen asks what she will be the spokesperson of, as in what she will be selling. George says that basically she will be selling herself, telling her it's all about what's on the inside, before smiling and leaving the room. The beauty contest goes on as normal. The models answer questions, and then comes Helen's turn. Her question is, what is the one thing in her life she feels guilty about? And most importantly, why did she do it? She looks confused and stuck as small amounts of snickering can be heard from the audience. She stumbles over her words, saying that she has done bad things but doesn't feel guilty, because no matter her actions, she's always stayed true to herself. And after all, it's what's inside a person that counts. Her response gathers a larger reaction than it should, clapping and cheering from the audience. Helen exits the stage feeling like she nailed the response. George tells the audience that the judges will make their final choices, and the show will be right back. Backstage, the model who confronted Helen earlier is seen talking to George, though their words aren't heard. George rounds the corner and tells Helen they need to talk. In a back room, George tears up the letter, telling her that the note never existed, and that he's sorry but can't tell her why, before leaving. Helen stops him and asks if it has anything to do with the other model. George reveals her name is Drusilla, and that it's now out of his hands. Helen curses her name as George walks away. Helen goes to confront Drusilla in her dressing room. The two have a heated back and forth, both accusing each other of sleeping their way to victory. But Drusilla reveals that she just told George that she would get the newspapers involved, and maybe catch him in a lawsuit for fixing the contest. Mid-argument, Helen goes 2 for 2 on the night and strangles Drusilla. Later, George talks to Helen in her dressing room. He asks if she's seen Drusilla anywhere, and Helen casually mentions that she left. George is skeptical, but Helen says recited her threats of going to the news and police were, in Helen's words, not worth getting choked up about. George asks if she's still interested in winning the contest, and Helen smiles and says she's still ready to go through with the plan. George says he loves her attitude, but they need to get her down into makeup and final preparations if they're going to meet the deadline. George rushes her through the halls and into a dark room. A man named Rudy handles her roughly, commenting that she has great bone structure. Helen scowls as she lets out a half-hearted thank you. Rudy continues to apply makeup roughly, and Helen tells him to stop. She asks how she's going to model anything looking like this. George tells her not to worry about it, before injecting her with a glowing blue liquid. George stands on a dark stage with a bright spotlight trained on him, and it's here we find out why with this particular contest, it's the beauty on the inside that counted the most. The lights come up and reveal a grotesque sight, and that Helen was crowned Miss Autopsy 1992, as the screen fades to black. When it comes to beauty rest, this is one Tales from the Crypt episode that takes vanity, ambition, and the fear of aging and cranks it up to a seriously disturbing level. The episode was directed by Stephen Hopkins, who you might recognize from films like Predator 2 and the 5th Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And honestly, you can feel that cinematic style throughout the episode. It looks slick, polished, and a little more high-end than your typical Crypt story. This episode is based on a story from Vault of Horror number 35. Both versions share the same core idea and twisted ending involving a disturbing afterlife beauty contest, but the execution is very different. The TV episode builds tension, adds a stronger rivalry, and makes Helen's actions feel more accidental and tragic, while the comic delivers the story much faster, almost like a dark punchline. In the end, the show takes a simple horror concept and turns it into something more layered, unsettling, and memorable. The episode stars Mimi Rogers as Helen, a desperate and aging model clinging to her last shot at success. And going up against her is Kathy Ireland, who was a real-life supermodel at the time. That casting choice wasn't an accident. It adds a layer of realism to the story's theme of younger models replacing older ones. Beauty Rest is basically a satire of the modeling and entertainment industry. It's all about superficial beauty, aging, and the pressure to stay relevant. And what's really interesting is that Helen doesn't set out to be a killer. The whole situation spirals out of desperation, which makes the ending hit even harder. And speaking of the ending, this episode is remembered for one of the darkest twists in the entire series. The idea of a beauty pageant taking place after death is pure EC Comics. It's ironic, it's disturbing, and it perfectly delivers that classic twist these stories are known for. Personally, I like this story because even though you see a big twist coming, as with most Crypt episodes, it's still delivered in an unexpected way. It's nice that even after all these episodes, the show still finds a way to end it on a fun and unsettling note. But that's all I have for you in this one. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching, and a special thanks to our channel members. Take care, stay safe, and have a great week.